chocolate-covered bacon.
Right, Josh. We're here in Port Orchard at Carter and Company, where chocolate-covered bacon is one of the specialties.
We're going to take you around Port Orchard today on this week's edition of the Beat Blast. Stick with us. Welcome back to this edition of the Beat Blast, sponsored by the Admiral Theater.
Story number 1.
Hi, Chris Henry. Nice to see you as always.
Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to bring you on to talk about Port Orchard and specifically Bay Street.
I moved here in the late 70s, shortly after my husband and I got married, and it is much the same as it is now, quaint little shops. However, there has been a great turnover of shops here. We have new businesses coming and going all the time.
We believe that downtown Port Orchard is the heart of Port Orchard, so we wanted to be part of that. And when we had an opportunity to expand from our Annapolis building, we would love to see a lot more foot traffic in downtown Port Orchard. We'd love to see the community coming down here. We'd like to be a spot that the community comes to.
What I always hear is, God, this place has so much potential, which means to me we're not living up to anything at the moment. But, things are changing. There's plans for new buildings, and I'm hopeful that something good's going to really happen soon.
Waterman Investment Partners has an agreement with the City of Port Orchard to purchase a 640 Bay Street. Waterman Partners is looking at doing a 5-story mixed-use development, including retail, apartments, and the plan is that there will be a community center with a library, a theater, a restaurant, a catering kitchen. It's a very ambitious plan and very unlike anything Port Orchard has seen in decades, if ever. So although Port Orchard and Bay Street looks the same, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Story number 2.
There's just something wonderful about towns along the Puget Sound, isn't there, Chris?
Absolutely, Josh. 100 years ago, this whole area was dotted with small vessels called the mosquito fleet, and they took people from town to town when the roads were just not that great. And now we hear there might be a resurgence of that in a modern form.
That's right. Of course, Kitsap Transit a few years ago passed a measure that includes fast ferries from not only Bremerton and Kingston, but soon in 2020 from Southworth. And there's even other communities around Puget Sound like Tacoma and Everett, which are waiting for light rail, but in some cases waiting years, even decades before it arrives. So they're even considering their own fast ferries. Now, the Carlisle 2, which is right behind us, is more than 100 years old.
This is a diesel engine. It's not the original steam engine. This vessel has been going since 1917 and has had upgrades, but it's still carrying people across Sinclair Inlet. And I know a lot of tourists use it as well. They are charmed by a trip on the Carlisle, which is just a floating history museum.
Story number 3.
If you're planning a trip to Seattle this week on the car ferry or the fast ferry, pack along some patience.
That's because crews recently closed down the long-time highway along the waterfront. The Alaska Way Viaduct closed on Friday night in anticipation for the opening of the new Highway 99 tunnel. A rerouted Highway 99 will soon run through a tunnel underneath the city, but that tunnel won't open until sometime in February. That means you'll likely see a lot more traffic on city streets over the next few weeks. Demolition of the viaduct will take place in segments beginning in February, but don't worry, access to and from Colman Dock will be maintained for vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. If you're walking off the ferry, keep an eye out for a new temporary pedestrian bridge at Columbia Street, which will replace the current pedestrian bridge at Marion Street for the next few years. Demolition on the viaduct is expected to run into the summer. Story number 4 today.
And Josh, along with the closure of the viaduct, there's a massive project going on the Colman Dock.
That's right, Washington State Ferries is completely reinventing the downtown terminal that takes us from Seattle to Bainbridge Island, Bremerton, and of course the fast ferries to not only West Seattle and Vashon Island, but to Bremerton and to Kingston, rebuilding the terminal at a cost of $468 million, but crews have encountered some snafus along the way. During construction there this summer, crews noticed what's being described as accelerated orange corrosion on some of the new steel pilings that had been installed to support the structure. Washington State Ferries tells us that testing of the corrosion showed that an unknown bacteria was to blame, but that specific organism has yet to be determined. The corrosion has prompted the agency to begin to use a high-performance marine coating system on all piles that are being installed at Colman Dock for the next 2 years to protect against the corrosion. And finally, story number 5, what's on tap for your weekend, sponsored by Silver City Brewery Tap Room.
Right, Josh, we've got a long weekend coming up. This is when we honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and there are 2 celebrations planned in Kitsap County.
That's right, on Monday at 9:30 in the morning at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds is the annual event. There's also one at 3 p.m. at the Marvin Williams Center on Park Avenue. Both events are free and open to the public. Remember, this is a day on, not a day off. That's our show for this week. We hope you have enjoyed Port Orchard. Thank you so much, Chris Henry, for being along for the ride.
Thanks for coming with us.
All right. Have a great rest of your week, Bremerton. Thanks to our sponsors, and most of all, thanks to you who subscribe to the Kitsap Sun. We could not do this without you. See you next week. Are you done in here yet?
Well, Josh, it's for you.
Who is it?
Port Orchard.
There's just something wonderful about Puget Sound's seaside towns, isn't there, Chris?
Right, Josh.
That's
terrible. Wait a minute.
She's got some behind-the-scenes information that you just got to know. Welcome, Chris. Stick with us on this edition of the Beat Blast. Okay, we'll try it again. That was better.